How do? Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Hi, what's wrong?
I was wearing my new spectacles.
Ooh. Ooh la la.
So my horrible children, you know those joke glasses you get that have like the big bushy eyebrows and then the
Yes.
big kind of nose thing? They reckon these look just like that.
Superb.
So there we go. We'll take them off.
You gave me an idea for a new outfit for the show.
And you what?
The new outfit, to put
Oh
some,
yeah, with the bushy
glasses or
eyebrows and the
something.
big nose. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Hello, people. Happy. What day of the week is it? I don't even know. It's Monday, isn't it?
It's
Monday.
it's that yeah. It's yet another Monday.
Yet another Monday. I don't know how we seem to keep having Mondays. They just keep coming over and over.
I
No,
don't know.
it happens. Right. Okay. So, hi, folks. Welcome to Day One Careers Monday free live interview coaching bonanza. I'm Gigi. That's okay.
Yes, correct. That's Gigi. That's Gigi.
Anyway, so let's just briefly kind of introduce you to ourselves, our background, and how we've ended up here with you fine folks today. And then we will just give you some housekeeping and let you know how the whole day is going to God, I'm not going to be here for a day. Hour is going to work out. So first thing is, yes, I'm Gigi. I'm an ex-Amazonian, ex-Amazon bar raiser. How I ended up here with you lot is that whilst I was at Amazon, as I say, I was a bar raiser and I was doing lots and lots and lots of interviewing, lots and lots of bar raising. And I happened to notice that regardless of what kind of skill set I was interviewing for, and because I was a bar raiser, I would interview across every single skill set you can possibly imagine. I kept coming across people that kept doing the same strange things, and they were consistently doing the same strange things, which I obviously thought was strange, because strange things are one thing, but consistent strange things are quite another. So I started to inquire why people had chosen that particular strategy to approach my question, or that strategy to approach the questions that they asked me. And they all consistently pointed me towards YouTube. Now, this was a little while ago, and there wasn't a huge amount of channels on YouTube talking about Amazon interview, which is slightly different to nowadays. I appreciate that. When I started to do some deep diving, I discovered that the main sources they were getting their information from weren't necessarily accurate. Either the channel wasn't built by someone who'd ever worked at Amazon and was getting their information secondhand and probably slightly misunderstanding what they were being told. And the other channels were by people who definitely had worked for Amazon, but they had worked in very specific parts of Amazon. So although their advice was accurate for that part of Amazon, it didn't necessarily translate, which was why weird things were happening. So I decided I would set up my own YouTube channel because I was frustrated by the miscommunication that was out there, fully supported by Amazon. They kind of promoted me internally. It was all very exciting. So built that channel up after a while under the guise of the Amazon Interview Whiz. Then my time at Amazon ended, and I just thought I would see if I could continue the Amazon Interview Whiz. So I extended it from a YouTube channel through to an actual kind of little business providing digital services. I didn't do one-to-one coaching back then. And I happened to cross paths with Yevgeny, who had his own journey, which he'll share with you in a minute. So you can just see how authentic we are in terms of how we got here. But we crossed paths and decided that the best thing to do would be to merge our businesses rather than compete with each other. And that's how we've ended up with Day One Careers. So I'll pass to you, Yevgeny. Just give people a quick intro into how you ended up here today on this channel with me and them.
Cool. So, my journey was slightly different. So, I started noticing that there were plenty of people who were going through the interview process, both for my team and also for sister teams where I was participating as an interviewer, where they would have great CVs slash resumes, great functional profiles, presumably really good fit for the roles, but because their interview skills were not there, they did not understand Amazon's 16 leadership principles. I could see that some of them did not prepare for the interviews at all. And the behavioral interview format, in addition to everything, it was also something that they were just completely put off by. So they weren't doing well. They weren't progressing through the interview stages despite good profiles. So I thought, let me run a couple of experiments. So rather than rejecting someone at the first phone screen, that I would do sometimes is I would give them a little bit of coaching and then see what happens. And anecdotally, what ended up happening is folks would do better. Now, that made complete sense to me. And in my last 2 months at Amazon, I started coaching. First, I started doing it for free. Then, when the demand went up, I started charging for it. Then I realized that there's just not enough of hours during the day to do this. Especially, I was doing it on top of my day job at Apple, where I got hunted. So I thought, you know what? Let me distill my expertise into courses. And so I started offering courses as well. And that went really well until one of my clients told me about Gigi, the one and only and the original Amazon interviewees. And she said that apparently she thought that Gigi and I were the most quote unquote credible people in the industry. And so we met, and yeah, we decided to join forces. And there you go. We from February 2022, we operate as day one careers.
Awesome. So, sorry for my lighting. I always struggle in this room with lighting. You're always beautifully lit. And then there's me with like shadows and all sorts of strange things happening. So, where did I sit there? Sit there? And anyway,
Your
so
lighting's
folks,
absolutely fine on my screen. I don't know, maybe.
I know. Anyway, could be my eyesight because I'm not wearing my glasses. But folks, this is how we are going to run this session for the next hour or so. We have an hour. If you give us enough questions to fill an hour, that would be wonderful. If you don't, then I guess we'll finish up early. But the way this works is there is a little comment section on the right hand side of your page, I believe. In there is where we want you to drop your questions. A couple of bits of housekeeping around those questions. Firstly, just to put it out there, there are thousands, maybe even over 10,000 different job families in Amazon. No one, two, or even 10 people, quite honestly, can be subject matter experts in the functional aspects of all of those many thousand slash over 10,000 job families. So if your specific question is about what type of functional questions that you might get as a lawyer or as a software development engineer or as an acoustics engineer or as a pre-construction manager, I'm really sorry, Evgeny, and I will not be able to answer those. It's impossible, and nobody would be able to do that across the board. So if that's your specific question, I'm afraid we cannot help you. On the other end of the spectrum, if you don't have any specific question and it's just a general, can you give me some tips? We are going to point you straight to the YouTube channel where there are 150 videos, I think, with tips on it. And as many hours as that would cover, it would take us that time to give you all of our tips. So if it's just a generic, give me some tips, please just go to the YouTube channel first. And then if you have specific questions about aspects of the interview process, then you're free to put comments in the YouTube channel and we will respond back. We usually do that within 24, 48 hours, maybe. So with those two kind of pieces of housekeeping, the last piece of housekeeping is if you have a very long question, there is a character limit on the this question box here. So if you have a very long one and you find yourself bleeding from kind of one to a second one, just put a number one at the end of your first box. Press send, then start typing again. And if you still haven't finished with what you need to say, put a two at the end of that, so on and so forth until you get to the very end of your questions. And then what we'll do is we'll be able to see your name and we'll be able to see that there are multiples and we will be able to scan down and pull them all together and then answer your question for you. I think that's about it. Oh, the final thing to say, folks, is please stay until the end. We have incredible freebies that I promise you are of such incredible value to you. So please do stay until the end. I'm confident they're the best freebies you'll find on Amazon interview preparation. So with all of that said, please do start smashing down your questions. I can see a few have popped up already. There are no silly questions. If we can't answer it, we will try and tell you we can't answer it rather than just ignore you. But please don't be embarrassed. Just get going and we'll start working our way through them. Have I missed anything, Yevgeny?
No, no, you have not. Should
Do
I
you want to
pick the
pick the
first
first
one?
one? Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, how long would it take to get an update after the interview loops? So, typically, after the loop rather than loops, you will get an update within 5 business days. Um, is this something that happens? Is it something that is meant to happen? Yes. Does it happen all the time? No. but there are various different systems in place within Amazon that will keep reminding people to get to to not stay for too long in radio silence. So yeah, typically 5 business days, but could be longer. If it is longer, it has nothing to do with you. It all has to do with them. So if it's longer than 5 business days, just keep following up politely with the recruiter, and they will tell you what the outcome is.
Yeah, I remember when they introduced those chaser emails, because I was doing so much interviewing and bar raising, I would get bombarded by these emails like every day. Make sure you write your notes, submit your notes.
I was once threatened with an escalation. So I did not know anyone who was not disciplined with writing up the notes and not obstructing the interview process.
Yeah, it was very intimidating. They just kept sending you emails. But anyway, okay. Right, so we're going to say hi to Clarissa. Hey, Clarissa.
Hey, Clarissa.
How you doing? Right, let's pull this one up from Zaid. Hi, Day One team. Hey, thanks for your help. You're more than welcome. Is it acceptable to glance at scripts I've prepared for the interview? Would looking at my papers for 10 to 15 seconds throw any red flags? Um, well, there's two parts to this. And sorry, there is a reason I'm now opening my mobile phone. Um, it is okay to have notes. There's nothing wrong with having notes to remind you of key bits of information or key data points so that you make sure that you're accurate in terms of what you say. But I'm going to now show you all what pausing for 10 to 15 seconds looks like. Okay. So imagine we're mid, I'm kind of, gosh, I'm so techno rubbish. It's right crazy, right? So imagine um, we're mid discussion, right? So, okay, I'll clarify this. It is definitely allowable to pause before you start speaking. In fact, Yevgeny and I very strongly recommend to our candidates that they do not open their mouths instantly, but rather they think about the question they've been asked. They write down the question so that they don't forget it and get sidetracked. They spend time thinking about what the appropriate response is to that question. And only once they've gathered all of their thoughts and put them together, is it okay to then start speaking. And it is okay if you do have some notes in front of you whilst you're doing that to try and identify what you think the right answer to the question is. What you don't want to be doing is flicking bits of paper everywhere so that your interviewer's seeing papers flying everywhere. That has happened to me. But that is okay at the beginning of a question. But what you don't want to do is mid response is to then look down and then in complete silence do this. Okay, that was 15 seconds. So that's incredibly unnatural, right? So what we will say to you is when you start, take your time, right? 30 seconds, absolutely fine at the beginning. Take your time to formulate your thoughts. Once you've burnt that time and you've started talking, if you're going to look down at your notes, it has to be literally a second or 2 seconds so that you can just either identify where you are in your story or make sure that you've got the data point that you want to share nice and clearly. You do not want to be staring at a script, trying desperately to find the place in the script where you've just left off to then work out what you're supposed to be saying next. No interviewer wants to believe or think that you are reading from a script. Now, I know we encourage people to write down their stories, but then you have to familiarize yourself with that story so that you're in a position to be familiar enough with it that if you're asked the exact question that you planned for, you can just blah, 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 blah. Or if you're asked a question that you hadn't planned for, to know your story well enough to be able to adapt it on the fly. So just to be clear, at the beginning, yes, pause and think 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds is fine. Once you're started to talk, the most you can do is look down for a couple of seconds whilst you just find a refresher point. Does that make sense, Yevgeny? Am I
Yeah,
babbling
that makes total
coherently?
that makes total sense. I mean, I advise everyone that I coach to, have to have notes, but just have bullet points and don't
Yeah,
read so
bullet
much.
points. Yeah, rather than a script. That's absolutely good point. Okay,
Cool.
your
All right.
turn.
Yes. Okay, so this one is from Ray. Hi, Gigi and Evgeny. Hello.
Hello.
L6 loop in 2 days. I'm very excited and nervous. I can relate, Ray. Totally. Right. How do I ensure interviewers are still engaged after 5 minutes of my story? Should I pause and engage attention in the middle of a long story? So I'm going to say this. From my experience and experience of my colleagues at Amazon, um, the interviewers are usually quite engaged. And it may not seem this way because some of them may not maintain eye contact with you because they are too focused on this thing, right? The keyboard, where they need to meticulously type up the notes from your interview. But generally speaking, you should expect them to be very interested in what you're saying, and in fact, a lot of them will be the sort of interviewer that I am not, which is the chatty interviewer. I don't know, Gigi, were you a chatty interviewer? I always keep forgetting, or were you kind of like the more let them get on with their story type of an
No, I
interviewer?
was the annoying interrupting interviewer because I would never remember my questions if I saved them until the end. So I had to ask them there and then, or they'd be forgotten. So yeah, I was the annoying interrupter.
Oh, there you go. So if you get the annoying interrupter, then they will keep you on your toes, and your conversation will your story will be told in a conversational way. If you get sort of my type of an interviewer, which is allow the candidate to sort of get on with their story until the end, they're going to be typing notes while you are speaking, which is a good thing. Now, the one thing that you can do is, for example, once you start narrating, maybe I don't know, 30-40 seconds, something like that, into your narrative. If they haven't interrupted you or asked you to clarify something, just ask them if the level of detail is thereabouts okay for them. And that will, on the one hand, give you some insight in terms of, are you too detailed, or do you need to add a little bit more detail to your story? Because they'll tell you. And it will also sort of shake them a little bit, just give them a little nudge and see if they're engaged. That's if you want to do so. The last thing that I will tell you is, you mentioned that your story is 5+ minutes. So I'm just gonna get you to think about the length of the story. Roughly speaking, we recommend that if you're interviewing for an L4 role, then your story needs to be around 4 minutes, and then 5 minutes for L5, 6 for L6, and 7+ for L7 and plus. These are broad guidelines because we're assuming that the more senior you are and the more senior the role is that you're applying for, the more details you actually need to share about problem solving and what actually happened in those situations. The reason why I'm drawing this attention to you is that I have no idea what role level you're interviewing for. So if, for example, you're interviewing for an L5 role, then when you're at the 5 minute mark, that's kind of like the end of your story, or should be thereabouts. And if you're interviewing for an L6 role, that's like an almost end of your story. So just keep that in mind. But otherwise, you should expect most of your interviewers to be engaged, and you can give them a little bit nudge at the beginning of your story by asking them whether they think you're detailed enough or not. Gigi, would you add anything?
Nope, nothing. You've covered it perfectly. Let's pop Ray back. Okay. Hello, day one team. Hello. You got reached out by the hiring manager for appearing in an interview while I had applied for a different position. Is that a good indication? One. Okay. Good. Good following the housekeeping rules. Well done. My first interview is with the hiring manager, but I feel I don't have the right expertise in the business domain, but still strong program experience. Two. Okay, okay, that's the end of it, right? There's no more questions. Okay, so what's the question here? Give us a number three, please. We'd like to know what the specific question is. Oh, your first question is there. Is it a good indication? It's not really a good or a bad indication. It looks like someone has seen your profile and they like the look of you and they've reached out to you. So the very fact that they've reached out to you is good. Is there any causality or correlation or association with the fact that you've applied for a different position? Don't know, because it's unclear whether you applied for a different position and they've passed you on to this hiring manager because the last position was not appropriate for you, but this one is more appropriate, or whether actually you're still in consideration for the other position and in consideration for this one. We do not have that information, and either way, I'm not really sure how I would measure good in that instance. So that's kind of my vague answer to your first question. But I'm not really sure if there's a question associated with this particular narrative. So if there is, please ask it again further below and we will try and give you a specific answer. Okay, do you want to pick the next one?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so um, I have an interview loop tomorrow, but HR has confirmed only two interviewers yet, and the rest are TBC. Other rounds to be postponed? Question mark. I have no idea what the real question is, Alpit. Um, what do you mean? Are you concerned that that are you worried whether the remainder of your loop will happen, or are you concerned that the interview will happen?
Or
Because I
have
can
they
tell you
already
that,
been postponed?
or whether they've already been
Mhm.
postponed. Yeah. So look, just follow up with your recruiter and ask them what the status is with those interviews. It's nothing that they shouldn't be able to share with you, because sometimes diaries clash, people get sick. I mean, just normal life. So yeah, just feel free to ask them and to clarify what's happening. But if you have some other concerns that I didn't manage to deduce, just pop them in the comment, in the chat box, and we'll try to get to you. You want to pick the next one?
Okay. Yes. So, Zach. Okay. That's an awesome profile picture. I appreciate you, Zach. That's brilliant. Okay, related to this. Oh, you were able to get a CSA position at Microsoft. The preparation was very helpful. Right, cool. Yeah, funnily enough, Zach, actually, I have another candidate that I'm working with at the moment who is also applying to Microsoft. And we went through the Microsoft values. And although they're not exactly one-to-one correlating with the Amazon leadership principles, what they've done is they've combined a bunch of Amazon leadership principles into an overall single kind of value. So what you can definitely do is go through the Microsoft values, break them down, and within them you'll see the Amazon leadership principles. Not intentionally, maybe, but they are nonetheless there. And all of the training that we then offer our candidates is then totally applicable to Microsoft. So you said you were able to get a CSA position at Microsoft. So I'm going to assume you were offered and accepted the job. So Zach, congratulations. Can we get the fireworks going? There we go. This is for you, Zach. There we go. Congrats. Right.
Well done.
So I'm just going to pick another one because that wasn't really a question and that would be cheating. So, ah, Ah, if I haven't encountered any leadership situation in my company, then should I directly say no or make something up? Good question. So we would never advocate for making something up. It is very, very easy to get caught out if you make something up. Amazonians are very good at digging and digging and digging into your answers, and it will quite quickly be exposed if you're making it up. So don't ever make something up. If you haven't encountered a situation, you have two options. The first option is if you have a story that you think is almost going to answer the question, but not quite, what you can do is tell the interviewer that. You say, look, I think I have a story that it's not quite the question, answering the question, but almost. Can I share it with you? Just a couple of lines, just to summarize it for you, and you let me know if that's going to work for you. If they say yes, then do that. Just summarize up a couple of lines. Do not give them the whole spiel. And then they can tell you whether they think that's going to work for them or not. If they say yes, you can go on and tell your story. If they say no, then we would strongly recommend you say to them, look, I'm really sorry. I don't think then I have a good example. Could you please ask me a different question? It is okay to ask for another question, contrary to what someone else says on their channel, which will not be named right now. It is okay to ask for another question. You just don't want to do it too many times, because if you do it too many times, then that suggests that you haven't got the breadth of experience that they're looking for. What exactly is too many times is hard to say. It pretty it's very variable in terms of your seniority. If you're very junior, it's not surprising that you might not have a specific example for the question, because Amazon questions are quite specific. If you're much more senior and you're an L8 and you keep being in a situation where you haven't come across that experience before, then it's going to be questionable as to whether you actually are currently scoped at L8. So the other thing that it does then is, if your interviewer says yes to you telling the slightly different story and it turns out to be the wrong story, that's on the interviewer. You cannot and will not be held accountable for not answering the question because your interviewer told you you should use that answer. Quite a lot of aggravation comes from interviewers where candidates simply do not answer the question. So if you're unfortunate enough that your actual story doesn't end up answering the question, it's not your fault. You asked. So that's my little psychological trick there that goes into that one. I hope that helped. Do you want to pick the next one?
Yes. We've got a three-parter here.
Woo! We love a three-parter. It's like Alien. Oh no, Alien's been up. It's like 5 parts now, isn't it?
For me, the Alien franchise ended after part three, and that's it. I can't. I
Fair
just
enough.
can't. Anyway, hi Gigi and EV. Thank you so much for all you do. I came by your page on Saturday. I have a phone interview for the role of contract manager
Mm.
legal on Friday. I'm very anxious. Next one. How will I know that I'm addressing the right LP when answering the question? So, you might be able to figure out what leadership principle the question is asking. Some of them are not very cryptic, and if you've done your preparation well, and if you know, if you actually bothered to try and understand what behaviors every leadership principle is trying to test for and what they embody, then for many questions you'll be able to deduce what that is. For some questions, you might not be able to deduce what that is. Um, I would say while you're prepping, it's good to map your stories to leadership principles. But when you're in an actual interview, then just focus on answering the question. But I think there's a slight undercurrent to your question, because I think you're also asking me, how will you know that you are addressing the right LP when answering the question? To be honest, there's no there's no hard and fast rule for you to know. You just need to focus on doing your best job at answering the question. And if you've done your preparation well, if you've really invested a lot of time in understanding what the leadership principles are, what behaviors exactly they're looking for, whether you do it yourself or whether you invest in our flagship product, Amazon Interview Success System, then the chances of you actually hitting the right behaviors in the actions part of your star stories, it becomes higher. But there is no surefire method of actually knowing for sure. Would you agree, Gigi?
Yes. It just boils down to, you just got to answer the question. Just answer the question. Pay attention to what's being asked of you and try and work out what are they most interested in hearing about, and then tell them that.
I think we've repeated this mantra. Just answer the
Answer the
blooming
question.
question.
Just answer the question. Just ask. I might get it tattooed across my forehead. Just
I
answer
might
the
too.
question.
My forehead's like twice bigger than yours. I'm
That's
very
true. So you could have it in bigger font.
exactly, exactly. And then the third part here is it okay to contact the recruiter before the telephone interview to ask about the applicable LLP? 100%. Do it. And if you want to do it with skill, I would suggest writing to them and saying, look, as someone who knows what the role is about, as someone who knows the hiring manager, for someone in this role, if someone gets this role, for them to do really well, what would you say are the most critical leadership principles for them to demonstrate, to do a great job? So frame the question away from asking what LPs am I going to be interviewed on, and instead ask what LPs are important for someone to demonstrate in order to do a great job. That should make the chances of them actually answering you slightly higher, although they might say yes and share those with you, or they might still say no or we don't know. So just, and if they do say no or we don't know, that's absolutely fine. It's not going to jeopardize your interview in any way. So ask any questions that you have, by the way. Don't, not just that, ask the recruiter any questions that you have in your mind. The worst thing that will happen is they will say no or I don't know.
Perfect. Absolutely spot on. Right. So, folks, we're just going to pause ever so momentarily here and ask you for a favor. As you can tell, we have put a massive amount of effort into this YouTube channel. There is years of our lives invested in this YouTube channel. I dread to think how many hours of recording, editing, re-editing has gone into this. So it is our pleasure and our privilege actually to be able to support you folks, and thousands of people have been hired as a result of working with our preparation materials, and we're privileged to be able to support you. But we would like a very small favor in return. That favor is, whenever you watch a piece of our content, that you either like it or you put a little comment under it in YouTube. What that does is it tells YouTube two things. First, it tells YouTube that it has surfaced the right piece of content to the right person, so that algorithm is good in terms of its targeting. And the second thing it tells YouTube is that the content is actually good content and that person liked it. And what then happens is YouTube then goes on to surface more of our content higher up the algorithm than it would have done before. So with that in mind, I'm just going to get you practicing because, muscle memory and all of that. I'm going to play you a little musical interlude. And in that musical interlude, I will ask you to please give this stream a little bit of a like and a thumbs up, just so that you know I can see how many people have liked this here on my left-hand screen. So I will know if you have not liked it, and I will take personal offense at that, just so that you know. And none of you, I'm sure, would want to hurt Gigi's feelings, would you? So we're going to do our little musical interlude, and you're all going to give us a big thumbs up. I know you are. I have faith in all of you. This might be a little bit loud, so if you have headphones on like me, you might just want to slip them slightly behind your ear, or if you have healing piercings, you might just want to take them off like me. So I will now play Run VT, as they used to say.
Please like the stream now. Please like the stream now. Please like the stream now. Please like the stream. 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 Like the stream.
Right, there
So
we go,
good. Gets
folks.
better. Gets better
There
every
we
time
go.
we play it.
Yeah, you think?
I,
Right, so I can see that not everyone has liked the stream. So if you out there, have not yet liked it, please do. Just a
yes,
fraction of a
please.
second of your time, please. Right, do you want to move on to the next one then? Oh, it's my turn, isn't it?
It's your
Sorry.
turn. It's
I
and
was
it's Julie. You know, it's in between the YouTube users. Three,
oh,
two,
oh, if
half
you've got
one.
a finger on it, would just drop it up there?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Right. Hey, Julie, first interview in 2 days. Ooh. The recruiter has stated the two LPs are deliver results and earn trust. Good. So that's amazing to know that information. If I get the infamous question around mistake, can I use personal or professional? Right. Okay. So just to be clear, there is only there's only one question in the entire Amazon kind of leadership question type thing that talks about failure, and it's not deliver results or earn trust. However, within other leadership principles, there are questions that are positive ways in and negative ways in. So, an example of a positive way in for earn trust might be something like, tell me about a time where you helped out a colleague who was in difficulty. A negative way in for earn trust might be something like, tell me about a time when you realized you were going to fail to deliver on a commitment that you promised someone. So negative way in, actually I use the word fail, but you take my point, where you were not going to meet a commitment you promised someone. I think that's better. So positive way in and negative way in, right? So no one's going to say, tell me about a time where you failed, or tell me about a time where you made a mistake in deliver results or earn trust. It might be something more along the lines of, tell me about a time where you didn't manage your time well. Tell me about a time where you made a commitment and you didn't deliver against it for someone. It's going to be that type of phraseology. So just to be clear on that. To answer your second part, can I use personal or professional? Always default to professional. Wherever possible, default to professional. Amazon is trying to understand your past so it can predict your future. A more accurate prediction of your future in business is to use evidence from your past in business. It is much more easily applicable. So default to professional wherever possible. Now, the one little caveat there, and I can see your lovely little profile picture, if you are someone who has not a huge amount of career experience and you're not old and crusty like I am, then candidates who are graduates or recent, only had 1 year professional experience, etc., that's the only exception where it's entirely reasonable that you might not have a professional story to align to the question that you've been asked. And within that reasonableness, that is not a word, but defaulting into personal things like extracurricular activity or volunteering things, those types of things, summer projects, whatever, that's when it is acceptable, because it's totally reasonable that you couldn't have an answer for every single story because you maybe not had any work experience or only 1 year or so. But for most other people, you really need to try and default to professional wherever possible. Do you want to pick the next one, Evgeny?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, how many follow-up questions can we expect in a leadership principle? It's impossible to know, Gundan. Sorry. It really depends on how much information you shared during your opening story, assuming the interviewer allowed you to go through your entire story. Depends on how much time there is. Depends on how well you're answering the questions. It's just a million of inputs.
How
So it's
rigorous your
very,
interviewer is as well. It's another
yeah,
variable.
yeah. So yeah, hard to know. I should probably pick another one.
Yes, go on, pick another one. Can't be copping
Okay.
out like that.
I worked as a freelancer. I have worked with different clients during that time. Can I use stories from that experience? I don't see why not, because most clients have similar problems, but not exactly the same. I really don't see why not. Let's see if you. I don't want to come as repeating stories. I understand. So your main concern is that possibly the type of problem that you were solving was the same. And so the good thing is that if you think about what Amazon will be asking you questions on in the behavioral part of your interviews, they will be interested in different things each time. Because if you look at the definition of the leadership principle, and if you dive deeper to understand what behaviors that actually map to a leadership principle, what you will understand is that even though the I guess the functional part of your freelancing work might have been similar from clients to clients, but actually the individual stories or the individual episodes of within those projects that you were delivering for your clients, they can and should be different. Because imagine, for example, if you are, say, as a freelancer, I would imagine that you're probably delivering some projects, right? And these projects have phases. And while projects might be similar in terms of the type of functional problem that your client experiences, but within that, how you go about delivering that project, what kind of conversations you have with colleagues, and all of those different details, they will create episodes, right? Milestones within the project, different, multiple different situations that you would have found yourself in while you're going through a project. So every project is actually a treasure trove of multiple situations, and every situation can be used to support multiple stories. We typically recommend one or two stories that you can squeeze out of every situation. And because the leadership principles are different, then, for example, you can very easily use the same project or even the same situation, if it's obviously relevant, to answer both, let's say, a invent and simplify question and an earn trust question, because what they are interested in terms of your behaviors is completely different between invent and simplify and earn trust. So I hope that answers your question. Would you add anything, Gigi?
Um, the best way I try and position it with my candidates is you're not focusing on the project with your client, you're focusing on you and how you behaved. And you need to separate those two things out. The actual project and the fact that it's the same stuff over and over doesn't matter, because that's just providing the blueprint for your story. It's your behaviors that they're actually interested in. And I'm sure, even though a project might be more or less the same with one client versus another, I bet you in one of those projects you had a much harder time with a relationship with a particular client than in the other project. So that would be your earned trust story, regardless of whether it's the same type of project or not. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's just do this one quickly. I'll pick another one after this, Yevgeny, so that I don't cheat. Is it easier to switch internally into different L6 roles than applying externally? Yes, because you don't have to raise the bar. If you're applying for an L6 role externally, you have to prove that you are better than 50% of people. Well, you can't prove it empirically, but that's the whole point. You're supposed to convince them that you are better than 50% of people who are currently operating as L6 in the same role or similar roles. If you're moving internally, you only have to be at the bar. You don't have to raise the bar. And therefore, it is definitely easier to move internally between different L6 roles than it is to come in from the outside. Right. I will pick the next one. Should I use technical jargon in my stories, even though it would make them overly complex? No. I think that's my simple answer to that. If it is a behavioral question and they are not seeking to understand your functional knowledge, you do not need complex technical jargon. You need to be focusing your narrative on your personal behaviors. The actual functional technical aspect of the story only serves to provide a framework to allow you to talk about your own behaviors. You also need to bear in mind that you will have a bar raiser at some point. Maybe not in the, definitely not in the early rounds, but once you get to loop, you'll have a bar raiser. It's very unlikely that bar raiser will come from your technical discipline. And therefore, if you use a whole bunch of technical jargon, you will blow their minds. They will not be able to focus on the information that they're supposed to be focusing on, and it will become a problem. So I would prepare for everybody as if they had no technical knowledge. And then if people are curious about your technical knowledge, they can ask follow-up questions to probe it deeper. All right, next one's for you then, Yevgeny.
Cool. Hi, Gigi. Hello.
Oh, hi. Do I sound like that? Hello.
But I can't do you because can I use in the loop the same stories I used in phone screen? So in theory, yes, but we always recommend that you check with your interviewer. Just mention that um, a colleague of theirs who was conducting the phone screen asked you the same question, or that you are planning to tell them a story that you use during your phone screen. Is that okay? And some interviewers, I'm hoping most interviewers will be okay with that, but some interviewers might actually recommend that you come up with a fresh story. So when you're preparing, if, for example, you've built your story bank and then you've gone through your phone screen, they invited you to the loop, then for those types of questions that you answered during the loop, during the phone screen, just prepare something fresh as a backup in case the same question pops up during your loop. Would you
Okay.
add anything else?
Nope. Perfect. Right, so I will pick this one and then I'll pick another one as well, Yevgeny, because this one's not going to take me long. Can I apply to various full-time roles during my 3-month internship through the internal portal? Will it be effective than to apply externally after completing internship? Don't know the answer to this one. I'm afraid I do not know the specific policies of applying for roles outside of an internship once you've been in an internship. So sometimes internships, you get invited back for a full-time role. So the best thing you can do is ask the person who is your line manager in your internship what you should do. They will know far better than we do. So I'll pick the next one. I have Azim. So I have appeared, I think that's supposed to be, for a phone interview, but I was not prepared for interview due to that they reject. Okay, that seems a very reasonable reason to reject you. After how much time can I reapply? So if it was just a phone interview, then you can reapply immediately. There's no cooling off period for phone screeners. Um, but if I were you, I would not apply immediately, given what you just said, that you were not prepared. Take a bit of time, make sure that you prepare properly this time, because the worst thing you can do is keep going back for more and more phone screens and failing at the first hurdle. Certainly as a hiring manager, and I'll ask Yevgeny his opinion, but as a hiring manager, if I was seeing a resume and then could see the history of that person repeatedly failing at phone screen one, they start to look less likely as a prospect, because statistically speaking, if they failed that many times with everybody else, why are they suddenly going to pass with me? That was my view anyway as a hiring manager. Would you have had that concern as a hiring manager, Yevgeny?
Yes, with some very
With some,
fringe cases,
yeah.
like for example, the job market in Luxembourg. Because if you think about it, Luxembourg, and a lot of folks end up working in Luxembourg. The job market in Luxembourg is basically finance, 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 insurance, 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 Amazon. So
Fair enough.
unless your background is in finance and insurance, you probably would have applied to all jobs at Amazon, and you
So
probably would
anyway,
have
yeah.
received a million of rejections.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Do you want to pick the next one from
Yeah.
Petty? Oh,
Hmm.
Petty's from our community.
Yes, yes, indeed. Right. Is the is the phone screening a phone interview or a video interview? If my computer does not support the Chime software, do I get a telephone call from the interviewer? Okay, what's it? It's a tech support question. I understand why I get to deal with it. Okay, so in terms of the phone screening being a phone interview or video interview, so first things first, in 99% of cases these days, there's not going to be any phone conversations whatsoever. I have no idea why they keep calling it a phone screen, but Amazon loves a bit of tradition, so why not? But actually, it is going to be an interview over Chime, but it's meant to be with cameras off. Does that mean that it's absolutely guaranteed that the cameras will be off? No, because we've got plenty of people who in our community and our candidates and folks who we coach who report back to us, and they're saying that, oh, it was meant to be a phone screen with cams off, and the recruiter confirmed to them that it's going to be cams off, but the interviewer showed up with their cam on. So plan for any scenario. It could be a cam off, it could be a cam on, just whatever it is. Now, in terms of what to do with your computer does not support Chime software. Gosh, I'm beginning to think, what sort of computer is that?
That's what I was wondering. I mean, I'm obviously not the tech one in our relationship, Yevgeny, but even I was starting to think, what computer could you have that they didn't build Chime to be functional on?
Um, Linux, possibly, but I have no idea whether Linux, whether they have a Linux package. But let's just assume that this, your computer does not support Amazon Chime. In which case, the way this would work is like in the good old days of teleconferences, which is you're going to get an email with an invite from Amazon Chime system. And what you should look out for is the list of dial in phone numbers. So you pick up the phone, You dial in that number, and then there's usually a passcode, like a sweet AI voice will tell you, please enter your attendee passcode, and you go pick, 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 put the hash button, and that's it. And so that's how you're going to dial in. And so your interviewer will likely be dialing in from their laptop, but you can dial in from your phone. The only thing that I would say is, if you are absolutely certain that Chime is not supported on your laptop, do advise your interviewer and see what they say. In theory, it shouldn't be a problem, but I have had folks dial in for my coaching session where their laptops crashed, for example. It happens, and they would dial in into a Zoom conference number, like the same experience that I've expressed with Chime, and the quality was absolutely horrendous, and we had to reschedule our coaching session because I could not understand what they're saying. You don't want this to happen during your job interview. Would you add anything, Gigi?
No, you covered it all very nicely. Right, let's have a look. Oh, there's always one. Okay, Neeraj, what are the key differences between L5 and L6 behavioral interview? What exactly is expected to crack an L6 behavioral interview? Right, I'm afraid we can't tell you this. No one can tell you this because the bar is always moving. The main difference is going to be around scope and complexity of the work and the kind of the level at which you're operating at in your current organization. But the reality is that the decision is made based by the group who are cross-referencing the people that they currently work with at that level in that role or similar, and thinking about would I expect of the bottom person, the middle person, and the top person. And through their collective brain and experience, they will come to a decision as to what would be considered as bar raising at L6 and what would be bar raising at L5, etc. No one could sit and write you a list of exactly what you would need to demonstrate from a behavioral point of view that would position you as an L6 rather than as an L5. So the only thing you can do is just try and present yourself as being someone who has delivered, as try and present your stories as being as complex from a challenge point of view, not a complex story, but a complex situation, and as challenging as you possibly can to help them see your ability to deal with difficult, complex, challenging situations. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that your stories, your range of stories, present as broad a scope as possible. So don't keep telling the same type of story around dealing with customer contracting. If you're a contract lawyer, you're going to be doing more than just that. You're going to be negotiating with internal teams. You're going to be working with the legal team. There will be a range of scope of work that you do. Make sure your stories demonstrate that type of scope. You can use the job description as a really good indicator of the type of scope of work that they're looking at. If that is your skills background, try and make sure that your stories cover that range of scope. And that's really all you can do, because no one can empirically document what the difference is between an L5 and an L6. And even if they did, that bar will keep moving and it will keep going up month after month, year after year. We wish we could, because that would give us a major competitive advantage over everybody else, but sadly not.
We
Anything
do
you'd
have
add,
plenty of
Evgeny?
competitive advantages, but just not that one.
Not that one. Yes, tis true. Tis true. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, and this is the one where I'm out of my depth, my dear friend, because this one says the recruiter mentioned two paths for my L6 interview: phone screens or a direct interview with the head. If I go straight to the head's interview, what keys, do's, and don'ts should I keep in mind? So I'll tell you how I interpret this. I'm interpreting this as them saying you can either have two phone screens with the rest of the team, or you can have one phone screen with the head. I have no idea why they're offering this option and how they've set this up, but that's the only way that I can interpret this. Do you interpret this in some other way?
No, I see no reason why anyone would be giving you the option. That's extraordinary. I've never heard a recruiter say, you can either do this or you can either do that. There's usually a process that everyone has to follow, and follow it they do. So that seems bizarre to me. So I have no response for that, Yevgeny.
Um, but in terms of
The
do's and
actual
don'ts,
question is do's and don'ts, though.
well, the actual question is do's and don'ts. I mean, I wouldn't have any specific do's and don'ts for any interview. You know, a phone screen's a phone screen. I'm just gonna give you my only do, which is answer the
Prepare.
question.
Prepare
Sorry.
and answer the question, and don't be an arse. I suppose that's the most thing you can come up with.
Yeah, with a British spelling, ARSE, that one.
Yes. Sorry, Clarissa, we'd need something a lot more specific from you in terms of the actual question itself, and to your this kind of option of how you approach your interview seems very strange. People almost always get the option as to whether they want to do their loop over 1 day or 2 days, but I've never actually seen anyone being given the option to choose their end-to-end process flow. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Oh, right. Yeah. Julie, it's about work on my house. No, not work on your house, Julie. That's just not transferable conceptually from work on your house to how you'd operate in a business. So no, don't use that. I'll pick another one. I had a first phone screen interview on Wednesday last week. Okay. But have not received any feedback yet. How many days would it normally take to hear back? So the SLA is 2 working days for your phone screen, and then 5 working days for a loop. So if you had it on Wednesday, the 2 working days would be Thursday and Friday. So you would probably expect to hear back either Friday or Monday if they were keeping it within the SLA. So I would say if you haven't heard by the end of today, being Monday, which of course is the end of today here for us because it's late evening here in the UK, but if you're in the US, obviously you're many hours behind us. If you haven't heard by the end of today, send out a polite nudge to your recruiter telling them you really enjoyed the interview last Wednesday. Do they have any update for you? And see where you get to. Okay.
Cool. Should I do this last one and then we'll offer the freebies?
Yes, that's fine.
Cool. So, I had an interview for L6 in December. The outcome was not inclined, but was told I can apply right away. I've been applying for similar roles, but keep getting rejected. Any advice on what to do? To be honest, the only advice I would say is try to get a referral from someone who you know at Amazon, and try to get a proper referral. What do I mean by proper referral? There are 2 types of referrals. There's one where an Amazonian can just indicate that they barely know you. It's someone from the network, and then the other one is when they really vouch for you. So they do need to pick that option. And then, again, it depends on how well you know your Amazonian friends. But if you know them, ask them to introduce you to the hiring manager, because once they have referred your profile, and they've chosen the appropriate option, which is where they vouch for you and they can really recommend you. Your profile will appear in the hiring manager's review queue, and so you want them to also shoot a quick email to the hiring manager with the introduction before the hiring manager actually gets the opportunity to look at your profile in the review queue. That will shift you just one stage forward into the hiring manager review queue. But otherwise, just keep applying to relevant roles. That's all I have for you. Anything you have, Gigi, that's different?
Nope, nothing different. All right, folks. So we are just at the end of our time now. So before you run away to go and do whatever else it is that you need to do with your day, we want to give you this link to where you can get all of our free stuff. The free stuff that we have to offer you is multifold. The first thing is we are going to give you away an amazing free sample of our flagship Amazon interview success system. Don't need to say system twice. It's like kind of saying KPI indicator, isn't it? Right, yes. A free sample of that. It's focused on customer obsession. We've chosen customer obsession because almost everyone is going to be tested on customer obsession at some point. What it does is it shows you our teaching methodology to help you understand the leadership principles. Leadership principles have multiple different, we call them facets, but different flavors of them. And we obviously are very familiar with them. So we have broken all of those down in our course. We're giving you the sample of customer obsession. It will help you identify the right types of stories to bring to your customer obsession answers. The other thing it also does is it tells you what the interviewer is looking for from your answer. So not only will it help you pick your right story, but it will also help you build the narrative of your story, focusing on the things they care about the most. It also has a little mock interview, me interviewing me, but that's just to show how it comes to life in interviews. So that's the first thing. Second thing at the end of that link is an incredibly useful list of plausible Amazon interview questions. They are not the exact interview questions. We do not have those and we cannot share those with you, but we are extremely familiar with what Amazon interviewers are looking for. And therefore, for the purposes of practice, we have created a very comprehensive list of plausible questions bucketed under all of the leadership principles that you can use for practice to help build the skill of answering a question in the moment. The third thing that then gives you is if you take either of those two things, you automatically get access to our fantastic Heartbeat community, where we have in excess of 6,000 members, some of whom previously interviewed for Amazon and some of whom are currently interviewing for Amazon. The most useful channels you might find there is the Buddy channel, where you can meet like-minded people and work together to do Amazon interview prep. And then the second most likely helpful channel is the Amazon interview chat. In the Amazon interview chat, we have our incredible bot, Andy, who is a custom AI model who has been trained on all of the content on our YouTube channel. So if you have a question and you cannot be bothered to go make your way through the extensive channel that I've spent many, many hours and many, many years building, it's fine. I won't be hurt. You can ask Andy and Andy will answer that question for you. So incredibly useful tools. You would be insane not to take part in them and make use of them. They are completely free, no catches. We absolutely promise. All right, Yevgeny, I think we are done for the day.
I think
So
we are.
thank you everyone for coming. We really, really appreciate it. It was a great turnout today. Thank you for all of your questions. If you have interviews coming up, we have our fingers very tightly crossed for you. Take care, folks. Stay safe in this mad world. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.